The United States Air Force is the premier air defense organization in the world. Not taking that responsibility lightly, speed and innovation are at the heart of our mission. Guts, grit, and problem solving are at the forefront of every day, meeting the challenges of tomorrow's Air Force. The Air Force's innovation arm, AFWERX, is stepping up to the challenges, keeping ahead of our adversaries. An organization within AFWERX is doing just that. AFWERX Agility Prime. The mission of Agility Prime is to expand technology transition paths to accelerate emerging technology markets by leveraging government resources for rapid and affordable fielding, attracting and optimizing external funding and talent. The goal of Agility Prime is to not only advance transformative vertical lift capabilities and create new paths to fielding innovative capabilities, but also prime the pump to advance U.S. national security and economic prosperity by bolstering the industrial base for these critical emerging aviation technologies. The cohort of commercial companies have provided Agility Prime with a collection of piloted, remote, and autonomous aircraft with a diverse range of capabilities and mission sets, and continue to create an infrastructure to advance the hybrid and electric vertical takeoff and landing (eVTOL) technology.
The most important outcome for the Air Force will be the ability to resupply dismounted soldiers anywhere in a 150-mile radius at no cost to human life. And then the ability to take that aircraft and put a reconnaissance payload on it and send it out on a mission that can gather information in that same operating radius or even further. The Chaparral is a flexible, multi-mission aerial asset that can be used by the warfighter primarily for logistics and contested environments. Because it has a vertical takeoff and landing capability, it doesn't need to operate from an airport or even a runway. It just needs a flat spot of land about 50 by 50 feet, and it can take off and land from any location. The operational relevance is that Chaparral can create a distributed autonomous logistics network in areas where it would be very challenging and dangerous to operate logistics with today's traditional manned aerial assets. And it can do this with a platform of systems that are autonomous, require very little supervision and maintenance, and present no risk at all to the warfighter. And a large autonomous delivery drone like Chaparral can meet this operational need and create a logistics capability that really couldn't be done any other way. We started working with the Air Force on a direct to phase 2 SBIR contract. It was an open topic, and we came in and began working with AFSOC in 2019. Since then, we've graduated to a phase 3 SBIR with Agility Prime. Our contract with the Air Force is helpful in two ways. First, revenues, which help with operations and keeping the lights on. Second, there is a signal that the relationship sends out into the venture and strategic investor community. For instance, bringing Lockheed Martin Ventures on board as a strategic investor to help us get Chaparral downrange at the earliest possible opportunity.
We saw a few characteristics of the vehicle that David's team was putting together that was very intriguing to us. And when we learned that Elroy was using hybrid propulsion systems, gas turbine as well as battery propulsion, we thought that that's great because you can pursue parallel paths. You can start the vehicle with the right range, the 300 to 500 mile kind of range. Also use a multi-variety of fuels, but you could still develop the electric propulsion system at the same time along a parallel path. So at some point in time when a great battery becomes available, you can make that switch. We make it a point at Lockheed Martin Ventures to support these companies. As long as they're making progress, we're going to continue to be their partner and investor. We've been very lucky, I think, the last couple of years where most of the companies we've chosen have done very well, and we've been there for the ride for all of them.
Our work with the Air Force has given Elroy Air a great partner and early customer, and has given me personally a set of relationships with people in AFWERX in the Air Force who I wouldn't have known otherwise. Smart, dedicated, hardworking Americans who are dedicating their lives to serve our country and who I've learned so much from.
The ability to fly into an area with a very small footprint, with a very small radar cross-section, and put that thing into an area where we would not want to fly manned aircraft. It's another tool in the toolkit of things that we could do on the battlefield to leverage good things for the warfighter. The first time that I saw the lift aircraft Hexa system, I said, what's the real special part about this? The cockpit is just a payload.
There's a number of scenarios where our warfighters get trapped either behind enemy lines or in dangerous situations where they can't get a typical helicopter in to assist. And you can actually fly Hexa in remotely and pick up a warfighter who otherwise is in harm's way. Agility Prime is a program that the Air Force has put together to support the domestic U.S. supply chain and development of this nascent industry for electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, or eVTOL.
What we can do with this aircraft and these systems is take someone with no experience whatsoever and have them pilot the aircraft solo by themselves for the very first time in about an hour of training. They can be focused on what they're going to do when they get where they're going, instead of thinking about how to get there safely. That is a game changer. The simulator is currently using virtual reality immersion for getting the person who is learning to fly the aircraft this sense of not only the control set, but what they'll be seeing, what it will be like to sit in the cockpit and see the aircraft move under their command.
We think of these very large craft as needing specialized equipment and rovers and tugs and things of this nature. This aircraft is man movable. 3 or 4 service members can move this aircraft. That's not just because it's lightweight, but also because parts of it come apart very easily, and with a very simple cart, you can move the aircraft in and out. The important thing here is you can get it to a site, and within a couple hours have it set up and ready to fly.
AFWERX, the way that it's structured right now, is probably the most encouraging thing that I've seen in the Air Force in my 30-year career. This is really a revolution in the way the Air Force does business at this point, and I really hope that we continue to do it this way, because there's great things happening because of it.
Our population is becoming more and more centered on cities. The distances between suburbs and cities are growing. People's commute is getting longer. How do we fix that? And if we continue to aggregate in cities, if we continue to drive more vehicles, we're going to continue to have worse congestion. We're going to continue to affect our environment in a negative manner. This is just one of many ways that we can start alleviating those problems. Kitty Hawk has been around for a while. We're about 11 years old. We were one of the earliest pioneers in the eVTOL, electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft industry. And we're developing a way to democratize air travel and also to do it with less of an environmental impact. So the goal is to reduce traffic congestion and to get people to move around an urban or suburban area at very low cost, at very low impact, using a unique vehicle that we've developed. We applied for SBIR through the Air Force Open Topic, and specifically through AFWERX. They were looking for different types of advanced air mobility platforms, and then they had a requirement for a small passenger carrying advanced air mobility platform, and that's where we fit right into that niche. So that's the program that we applied for and were accepted on the first trial. We've gotten nothing but encouragement and optimistic outlook from our engagements with DoD, and I hope we continue that relationship a long time into the future. The advantages that we get is the Air Force's airworthiness program. They have a higher risk tolerance, and they're much more flexible than the FAA's certification program. So we're able to develop an aircraft, pursue a military flight release or MFR through AFWERX, and fly that aircraft in a manner that is safe, lets us experiment, and that allows us to rapidly iterate on our aircraft in a way that we couldn't do if we did not engage with the Air Force. And the SBIR program was the door to that engagement. Our interest is in those use cases for the warfighter that closely parallel or an analog to what a civilian use case would be, like urban air mobility, like moving people between a city and a suburb, being able to rapidly and flexibly select a landing site where it's not an established heliport.
And I really believe without change, we are at risk of losing. Risk of losing our competitive advantage in a highly contested environment. Risk of losing our credibility with our joint teammates and our allies and partners. Risk of losing quality airmen and their families if we don't change as an Air Force. But most importantly, our ability to defend our national interests.
The ability to move through the air has done phenomenal things for the security of our nation. If we can find new ways of doing that, one, it's not just a national security capability, but right, it literally lifts us up and lifts us up as a force. And I think it's that opportunity to democratize air travel for our airmen and for our nation. That's exciting. In that strategic context, if there is an entirely new way of doing mobility in the air, we have to be in the middle of that. We have to make sure that we understand what the implications are. We have to see how we build that as a capability for our Department of the Air Force. And Agility Prime is all about the partnership with the commercial sector, making sure we are finding the greatest technologies out there to advance our mobility in the air. So we've had over 20 different companies that have applied to this air race to certification. How many of those 20 will be viable? Does that become 30 or 40? There are over 300 companies that have designs out there. Air Combat Command is interested in the personnel recovery, phenomenal mission, and really phenomenal innovation among the airmen, thinking about that mission, how they might use this. Interesting things that came out of that, and this goes back a little bit to the broader strategy of these dual-use technologies. When I'm looking at a future where we fly orbs into a new era of aerospace, I need those from a commercial perspective if I want broad access.
We've been so fortunate to be able to partner with the Air Force through the Agility Prime program. I mean, it's an extension of the team, and to be able to have access to the aviators that and engineers that the Air Force has, it's, I mean, world class, right? It's accelerated us not only commercially because of the validation that comes from the world's greatest Air Force says, look, we want to operate your plane, but also just the real hard work that goes into building a plane to be augmented with folks from the Air Force has been huge.
We're starting to see this collaboration again, and that team development in this new era of aerospace that we see allows an acceleration. Part of the question is, are there ways of simplifying that? And so electric vertical takeoff and landing has potentially some advantages. With electric, I have fewer moving parts mechanically. I have less hydraulic parts, so that reduces, in general, the idea is there's going to be reduced operations and maintenance. With electric, I'm able to control more effectively my acoustic signature. And then the other piece is the simplified vehicle operations.
When we fly a on a flight test campaign, it's 0 emissions through the tailpipe, which is pretty remarkable. You can do things in a way that's both commercially viable and sustainable. They're not mutually exclusive. Like, at the end of the day, we see this partnership as an opportunity to serve the members of the Air Force and to make us a better product and ultimately help us be commercially successful along the way. The Air Force brought in a bunch of global experts to do ground vibration testing on this on serial number 2. And they set up all the equipment, they brought in all the experts, and for a month they did a full complement ground vibration test, which for a small aerospace startup is kind of unheard of, right? It would have cost us tens of millions of bucks. We would have had to take the aircraft somewhere else. So to be able to lean into Air Force research labs, the accelerant there is just huge.
While it's been exciting to see the Air Force team come together and the industry team come together, I'm thrilled to see the interagency, the collaborative work with NASA, with the FAA, Department of Energy, think about new approaches to electric. So I see an energy in the nation that's going to push this industry forward.
Unlike traditional aerospace, the performance is only going to get better over time, but as new battery technologies come out, we'll put them in the aircraft and extend range, extend payload, et cetera. But right now, it's the limit of what Mother Nature will let us do. When you bring that together, you can do pretty awesome things. So our focus is building the best product we can to change the future of aviation.
What's phenomenal, and I think what has been impressive across the enterprise that we're working with on the Agility Prime broader team, is the level of openness that these companies have, the level of maturity that they have, and that creates the agility we need in our future Air Force.